Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Stalking the Wild Autoharp. And for the next couple of weeks at least, I'm going to be talking about arranging. Arranging is about what you do once you've learned a tune or song to kind of polish it up and put it into a shape. So very often we learn to play a melody and somebody says, hey, can you play Whiskey Before Breakfast? And we sit down and we play it, and we go through the tune twice, and that's kind of it. And wouldn't we like to have a little bit more than that? Something to start it out with, something that puts a nice polished finish, maybe a change of something in the middle, a change of key or something like that. That's what arranging is about. And there are different kinds of concerns, whether you're arranging an instrumental tune or a song. And so I wanted to discuss some of these different ideas that I had floating around in my head about arranging. And so I decided to break it up. And this week I'm going to talk about instrumentals. And then in the following week or weeks, not sure which, I'm going to talk about arranging songs. So I wanted to start with the most simple ideas, which is you've got a melody, right? In this case I was doing I'll Fly Away. When we are arranging, we are basically giving something a shape. And in order to give something a shape, you have to start with it in its most basic, stripped down form. And so I suggest, and you don't have to do it this way, but it's always good to start with a version that is very spare. Almost nothing there. Just the naked tune. Maybe no rhythm strums whatsoever. Now, you could do this like I did it, which is I padded the tune. Okay, or you could pinch it. Did you hear that long pause? I normally would have filled in with rhythm there, maybe even a lot of rhythm. Okay, but if we start with a lot of rhythm, then we don't have as far that we can go with it. So start with less. Less is more, especially at the beginning. And let me just mention here, put in another plug for understatement. I did a whole video about a year ago, somewhere, about less is more. And how we tend to fill in too much and make things too busy because we can, but it's really very effective and very classy to do less. So start an instrumental with less so people get a really good gander at just the melody. What is the melody you are playing? just by itself, or even less. I could do it just. Now, when you are playing with that much sustain, long notes, you kind of need to feel that beat going underneath them. That beat that eventually you're going to fill in your arrangement. But when I am leaving those long spaces, I'm still feeling the pulse, so it keeps me on the beat, okay? So you feel that pulse, but you don't play it. You're understating things so that you have room to fill in. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is how do we progress from that point? How do we fill in? How do we get it to build up, add a little bit more and more? And how far is too much? Because we could add lots and lots, you know, to this because we can. What is too much? You know, where do we lose the tastefulness of an arrangement, okay? It's hard to teach that. You have to think about it. You have to listen. Record what you play. Listen to it. Is it too busy? Is there too much going on? Is there too much texture? But in general, after we play the bare bones, then we want to add just a little bit and play it again. So we might add just just a little bit more in density. We're getting more dense, okay? So in this build-up, are we going to let things get faster? This is something else we have to ask ourselves. Is it going to get faster as we go? A lot of times people like to speed up their fiddle tunes, okay? But some tunes are not appropriate going fast, and so we like to think of them as slow, and how am I going to keep it slow? How am I going to rein it back? One way to build your tune up is later, after you've played down here, then jump up an octave. See how that made it build and gave it more later on. You know, you don't start up there, but you could. You could start up real high in the sky and then come down and get more solid. Again, creative arranging will tell you all of that, but you kind of want to think about it a little bit in advance and see if you can come up with a nice shape for it. So going up an octave is a way that you can add a different flavor to it further on down the road. Another thing that you can do is you can change your picking if you can. This is why I like to teach people different picking methods right from the get-go so that you have some variety, because if you can play with your thumb that adds a certain sound to it that it didn't have before. Okay, or like I said, padding. different sound quality. Okay, we already played a little bit with the pinch. Now here's something that I'm working on, flat picking. Now this one doesn't sound that good in this key on my harp. Again, as you try these things, you might find that some things work and some things don't. So you kick those out of your arrangement and don't do those again. This harp doesn't sound so good with the flat picking in the key that I'm playing this song. If I were playing it here, it sounded a little bit better with the flat picking, I think. My opinion. I'm very enamored of flat picking these days. Okay, so different types of picking is another way that you can add diversity to it, and it's a matter of deciding, putting it in the right order so that it builds. Okay, and then after it's built to the peak of where you want it to go, before it goes too far, gets too busy or too flashy or too complicated or too dense, then what are you going to do? Certain tunes go well with a building up, building up, building up, building up, and pow, they're over. That's great. They build up intensity, you know, if you're playing a fast fiddle tune. You know, they build up, and boom, they're done. But some tunes, you want to build them up and then bring them back down and have them end peacefully like they began. You know, and I think I'll Fly Away might work really well for that. So you start with sparse, and you build it up and you take it up an octave. And then you bring it back down again. Something like that, so that it ends peacefully like it began. How far up that hill do you want to climb? Okay, so these are all things to take into consideration when organizing an instrumental. Something else that you might want to consider, a medley. A medley is where you have maybe two different instrumentals that you put together and play as one. So you play the first part, the second part, you know, of your first tune, you go around that a few times, and then just when you think it's going to get too boring to do much more with that, you change, boom, and you go into a new tune, and you do that tune a few times around, and suddenly you have a tune that's this long instead of this long, or this long but this too many repetitions. Okay, the idea is to avoid boredom. Keep it interesting. All right, so a medley is a good way of doing that. Another thing that people will do is they will change key. Start in D. And then E. Okay, now you would do that after a few reiterations, not second verse in a new key, but let's say you had played it 3 times through and then all of a sudden, boom, change key. These are all different ways of adding interest to your instrumental tune. So you'll notice that I'm not exemplifying all of this by giving you an entire through and through instrumental arrangement of a tune at this point. That's for you to do. Try to shape some of your instrumentals to make them more interesting. I'm Hal Weeks. This is Stalking the Wild Autoharp. If you want to support this ongoing program of tutorials, you can go over to my Patreon and you can put in a few bucks every month. Comes and it helps me to keep going and keep doing what I am doing. So don't forget to subscribe to this series. And if you would like me to work with you individually in private lessons on Skype, online, we can do that. Go to halweeks.com and look me up, and all the information on getting private lessons is there. I'll see you next week on Stalking the Wild Autoharp.